we don't get some help here real soon, we'll lose everything we own to Deadeye. We'd stop him if we weren't too scared to try.
I recently watched one of my favorite SpongeBob episodes. All of them. I'm just kidding. No, definitely not. Some of the recent ones are not to be compared to the classic good episodes, like anything prior to season. You know what? Forget it. As I said, I watched one of my favorite SpongeBob episodes called Pest of the West. It is the story of SpongeBob's great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa, Spongebuck SquarePants, his adventures as he became the sheriff and later fry cook of the town Bikini Gulch, or Deadeye Gulch as it was known at the time. There's a lesson to be learned from the episode that I think will be of great use to you, so stick around if you're interested. This channel exists to encourage you to be your best self through lessons that are primarily rooted in biblical, so as in the Bible, as well as Stoic principles. The story opens up with Spongebuck making his first appearance in the central hangout spot of the town, the Krusty Cantina. He's greeted by many questioning looks from the citizens of the town. He is also charged double for his shot of milk that he ordered, per Mr. Krabs' request. He is then able to talk to Mr. Krabs and explain what business he has in the town in the first place. He saw an ad for a fry cook job and he wanted it. Well, Krabs then hires him on the spot, for the sheriff job, that is. Apparently the previous sheriff had died. So Spongebuck wasn't thrilled at the thought of taking his place. He explained to Krabs that he was actually interested in the fry cook job and gave Krabs a taste of his famous chili. Turns out the chili was, in Krabs' words, terrible. So he remained the new sheriff. And as that conversation was taking place, one of Patrick's ancestors barged into the cantina and exclaimed, "He's a-comin'! Deadeye's a-comin'! Deadeye? Who's Deadeye?" He and the entire cantina then began to sing a song about who Patrick was referring to, Deadeye Plankton. And I'll go ahead and sing it for you myself, actually. I'm just kidding. Of course not. As songs go, it wasn't bad, but there's a pertinent line in the song that reveals the true cowardice of the town at large. In unison, many of the fish sang, "We'd stop him if we weren't too scared to try." Long story short, Deadeye Plankton essentially had the whole town hostage, in a way. He steals Krabs' money, pulls Patrick's pants down, and just does whatever he wants.
A criminal! He's a menace to the entire city!
Just as the town was finished singing their song, he arrived, Deadeye Plankton, at the cantina to scare everyone, to rob Mr. Krabs, and yeah, to pull Patrick's pants down. I mean, how rude. If robbing someone isn't enough to make you a villain, depantsing someone, that definitely is. Let's just be clear. Spongebuck, even after just hearing the entire song about how dastardly Deadeye really was, called him out for stealing Mr. Krabs' cash. Deadeye then tried to intimidate Spongebuck, which doesn't entirely work. But he does manage to run Spongebuck out of town, temporarily at the very least, after first setting a time to have their official face-off at high noon. Spongebuck eventually finds himself in a desert area a little ways out of town, where he is at first discouraged, but then essentially forced into encouragement by Patrick by being slapped, which is sometimes, even oftentimes, necessary. Perhaps not the slapping part, but the forceful encouragement, whether done by yourself or others, but that's a whole nother discussion. Spongebuck and Patrick take the quote-unquote shortcut back to town, which was literally falling several thousand feet off a cliff onto a cactus. So then they fly off of it back to town, which did actually work. And this all occurs just as Deadeye is nearly finished ransacking the town, even going as far as to literally take the clothes off of the backs of the citizens. That's some dark stuff. Spongebuck and Patrick make it back just in time to hatch a plan before the showdown at high noon. Not that Spongebuck had any sort of plan, as he goes on to explain.
Spongebuck, why do you keep saying...
You don't have a plan, do you?
No. To be honest, I didn't think I'd get this far.
But I know that with by being a team, we can do it, or something. Spongebuck is then forced to just take action absent of a concrete plan, as Deadeye had just arrived on scene. Nonetheless, Spongebuck prepares for the face-off between Deadeye and the team of people he had come to know. Or so he thought that's how it was going to play out. Turns out everyone had abandoned SpongeBob, including Patrick. Krabs even exclaiming, "Yeah, we're right behind you, boy. Way, way behind you." It's probably one of my favorite lines in the episode. Well, actually, probably my single favorite line in the episode. So then it became a true face-off, a 1v1 of freedom versus tyranny, hero versus villain, whatever you want to call it. Spongebuck and Deadeye begin to make their approach toward each other, marching ever so slowly, intentional with every step, including Spongebuck's final step, as well as Plankton's. Surprised, Spongebuck notices Plankton is no longer to be seen anywhere, until Spongebuck lifts his shoe from where he had been standing. He had stepped on Plankton, ultimately defeating him. And so came the end of Deadeye Plankton's reign over the small, old western town, Bikini Gulch. It's fascinating because the entire town had refused to even try to stop Deadeye Plankton, as he ransacked their town and literally took the clothes off their backs. Turns out all it took to defeat this perceived formidable foe was to simply step on him. The lesson then is, don't discourage yourself by overestimating the difficulty of any given task, but also don't set yourself up for a rude awakening by underestimating the task either. Man is not worried by real problems so much as by his imagined anxieties about real problems. Now, it may actually be worthwhile to assume that your fear or whatever task you're faced with is a daunting one, because you'd be better off being pleasantly surprised by overestimating the difficulty of a task than the opposite. But still, the idea being, don't let that discourage you. Maybe the dragon you have to slay, as Jordan Peterson would say, is a formidable foe after all. Let's say it even defeats you at first. Isn't there more honor and satisfaction in having at least faced your fear than living in perpetual fear of it, contrary to what the citizens of Bikini Gulch chose to do? What stands in the way becomes the way. As a Christian, I need to clarify that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. That said, this quote reigns true in that most often, it's the thing you don't want to do, the things you're avoiding, that are necessary to do for your life to have the potential to be full. So yes, what's in the way becomes the way, lowercase w. I have my own example of this idea being played out in my life. I worked in, I believe, what would be called an amusement park, and one of the tasks that I was given to do was go through the training to operate the ropes course. And it had been a while since I'd done anything like that. It kind of felt a little bit like school, to be honest. One of the crucial aspects of the training was learning the rescue procedure had someone, become unconscious or something on the ropes course. When I got a decent idea of what we would have to learn, this whole procedure of these commands, these different lines, and everything would have to be done within 2 minutes, I believe. When I learned that, I was pretty discouraged. I was like, man, you expect me to learn this in one day, let alone this session of like an hour or two? How the heck am I supposed to do that? Well, I did do it. It turned out to be not quite as impossible as I feared it might be. Now, I didn't think it was actually impossible, but I thought it would be very difficult. And sure, it wasn't easy, but it certainly wasn't as difficult as I was imagining it to be. So I learned how to do the rescue procedure, and I did it in the allotted time, less than 2 minutes. The person down on the ground is like, hey, rope coming down. Then they say this, that. It's kind of hard to explain, but anyway, it was kind of fun, actually. And this example makes me question if there are additional principles to this idea. Is it more broad? Is it the fact that we're more capable than we think, or that we become capable as we have to be, or you become what you want to be? Makes me think of the quote, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." Perhaps that's true even on a smaller scale, like with this example. I didn't want to, I guess, fail the training and have to do it a different day or whatever would have happened. So it's like, well, I had to become capable, and therefore I did. I'm not entirely sure, but anyway, let me know what you think about that. I might do a part 2 of this video topic about facing your fears, more specifically in regards to what happens to you when you do. So stay tuned for that. So again, to kind of drive it home and combine the SpongeBob example as well as my own with the ropes course thing, don't discourage yourself by overestimating the difficulty of any given task, but also don't set yourself up for an unpleasant surprise by underestimating the task either. But whatever the case, no longer be overcome by your fear, but face it. Let yourself be emboldened and empowered by challenge, not threatened or discouraged. Your dragon that you have to slay may very well be formidable, but I would kind of hope that it is. For the greater the obstacle, the more glory in overcoming it. But regardless of how difficult your task may or may not be, face it nonetheless. He who fears he shall suffer already suffers from what he fears. Everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. I mentioned the verse in a previous video, and it's applicable here as well. The wicked flee when no one is pursuing, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind, or self-control. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Well, I do hope that this video, that the lesson helps you in some way, so apply it today and whenever and wherever applicable. With that, do check out previous videos, specifically my most previous video talking about why you shouldn't be overly concerned with what other people think. Remember to treat others the way that you want to be treated, and to love God and love your neighbor, and therefore you will continue to be your best self. Thank you again for watching. As always, it's an honor.